You weren't born like this. There was a time, even if you don't remember it, when your days were filled with wonder. When you moved through the world wide-eyed, asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. You stared at the sky too long. You drew pictures of what you saw in your dreams. You told the truth too loud. And they called it childish. But what they meant was dangerous. Because there was something in you, a fire, a defiant clarity, a refusal to settle. And slowly, they began to train it out of you. Not with violence, but with something far more effective. Routine. Expectation. Reward. Punishment. They gave you gold stars when you colored inside the lines. They took away your silence when you asked too many questions. They handed you screens and systems, bells and homework, rankings and rules. And when you struggled to fit into their blueprint, they said you were the problem, not the world. You were taught how to follow, how to be agreeable, how to seek approval. Not how to think, not how to feel, not how to truly be alive. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." So you inherited their shame, their fears, their buried dreams, and you made them your own. You were trained to chase safety instead of meaning, to choose comfort over truth, to pursue success by someone else's definition, even if it meant abandoning your own. So here you are, breathing, functioning, smiling when necessary, and yet you feel empty. Not because your life is hard, but because it is hollow. You've mastered surviving, but forgotten how to live. You were taught to wake up early, to work without rest, to nod and say, "I'm fine," when your soul is on fire. You were conditioned to equate exhaustion with worth, productivity with virtue. They told you, you can rest when you retire. But deep down, something in you is screaming. And you don't tell anyone, because everyone else is just as silent. You were trained to waste your life. And the worst part is, they made it look normal. You scroll past your dreams, you drink to tolerate the noise, you pretend you're okay. But the truth is, you were not built for this. The human spirit was not designed to live in fluorescent boxes, to chase numbers, to bury pain beneath convenience. You were made to feel, to connect, to transform. And somehow, they made that sound like rebellion. So now you whisper your truth in dark corners. You journal what you can't say out loud. You look at the clock and wonder where your time went. You think, maybe something is wrong with me. But it's not you. It never was. You've just been trained away from yourself. And recovery is not a weekend retreat. It's a war. A return to your own voice. A fight for your own soul. You have to unlearn the noise. You have to remember what it feels like to want something again, not just for survival, but for wonder. You have to look at your life and ask, who am I living this for? Not in the poetic sense, but in the brutal, silent question you ask when the house is quiet and the lights are off and no one is watching. That's where it starts. Not with a plan, but with a rupture. The soft, terrifying realization that you were meant for more. And that maybe, just maybe, it's not too late to take it back.
But what if I told you that you never actually made your own choices? That the life you call yours is more like a script handed to you before you even knew how to hold a pen. You think you've been living, but maybe you've only been complying. The school you went to, the job you chased, the values you clung to, The goals that once glittered, they weren't born from you, they were installed. They taught you to chase things that never truly mattered. Applause, appearances, productivity. Always producing, always proving, always performing. And they called it success. But deep down, some part of you has always known, this isn't life. This is programming. You were trained to ignore the inner voice, conditioned to silence your instincts, coached into betraying your own rhythm. So instead of listening inward, you learned to listen up, to systems, to expectations, to pressures disguised as wisdom. You stopped asking if any of this made sense, and instead, you learned how to endure it. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's what most people do. They mistake compliance for destiny. They feel the weight of dissatisfaction, but call it responsibility. They feel the numbness in their chest, but call it maturity. And when something inside them screams, they call it weakness. But that scream is sacred. That discomfort is a doorway. You weren't born to follow. You were born to remember. To remember the truth you buried beneath layers of expectations, the part of you that once believed in magic, the part of you that questioned everything, the part of you that moved slower, breathed deeper, loved harder. The problem isn't that you failed. The problem is that you succeeded at living someone else's life. You've been taught that your value lies in your output, that your worth is measured in busyness, that rest is laziness, that softness is weakness, that success is a straight line paved by hustle and sacrifice. And so, you became an actor in your own existence. You stopped asking, "Who am I?" beneath all this noise. You were told to seek purpose, but only if it came with a paycheck. You were told to chase passion, but only if it could be monetized. You were told to be yourself, but only if it didn't disrupt the system. And yet here you are, soul aching, spirit tired, heart asking questions that have no place in a world that worships the surface. But those questions matter. Because somewhere inside of you, the real you still lives. Unbroken, unfiltered, untamed. Jung didn't just speak of healing, he spoke of awakening. He spoke of bringing to light the hidden forces that silently shape your days. And those forces aren't just societal. They're ancestral, generational, carried like invisible wounds in the bloodline. You think your restlessness is personal, but it's sacred. It's the soul's rebellion against the machine. So what do? You slow down, you turn inward, and you get radically honest about what's been living unlived inside of you. You question everything. Why do I want what I want? Who benefits from my exhaustion? When did I stop feeling? These are not soft questions. They are revolutionary. The modern world has taught you to escape yourself at all costs, through consumption, through distraction, through validation. But your healing begins when you stop running, when you finally sit with the silence, when you allow the grief to surface. Because grief, when welcomed, becomes a compass, and silence, when honored, becomes a sanctuary. And eventually, you begin to hear it. The truth beneath the noise, the longing beneath the ambition, the innocence beneath the armor. You start to realize nothing outside of you was ever meant to define you. Not your resume, not your relationships, not your regrets. You were never meant to become a product. You were meant to become a presence. And that presence cannot be purchased. It must be remembered. You're not broken. You're buried. And the excavation begins the moment you stop pretending. So unlearn what numbed you. Dismantle what tamed you. Burn the script and write something real.
You began to sense it not through words, but through absence. through what wasn't said, what wasn't offered, what wasn't held. Because most of the time, it wasn't that they said you were unworthy, it's that they treated you like you didn't matter. That subtle silence became your script. You stopped asking, stopped expecting, stopped believing that someone would truly stay. And in that gap, you started to vanish. People think that forgetting is a sudden thing, but forgetting is slow. You don't forget your worth all at once. You abandon yourself one compromise at a time, one dismissive glance at a time, one small betrayal at a time, until eventually you can't hear your own voice anymore. Jung once warned us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And that includes you. You didn't just survive trauma, you survived the silence that came after it. The part where no one noticed, no one asked, no one stayed long enough to hear the real story. You adapted by becoming invisible. But now, there's a stirring in you. Something sacred waking up. You started noticing the moments when your body tightens, when your breath shortens, when your words hesitate. You've begun to catch the lies you tell yourself, the ones that say you're fine when you're not. You started questioning the roles you've always played. And that is the beginning. Because healing doesn't start with clarity, it starts with interruption. When the old pattern finally doesn't work the way it used to, when you can't pretend anymore, when pretending hurts more than truth. It's not clean, it's not linear. You will grieve the version of yourself that others loved because she was convenient. But here's the truth. You weren't born to be convenient. You weren't born to be small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. The pain you feel now isn't weakness, it's honesty, it's clarity, it's the sacred scream of a soul tired of hiding. You've carried everyone's weight for so long. You've said yes while your heart whispered no. You've smiled when you wanted to scream. You've been strong for everyone else while crumbling inside. And now, it's time. Not for revenge, not for validation, but for return. Return to your own voice. Return to your inner home. Return to the self you left behind to survive. No one taught you how to rest. No one showed you how to speak. No one modeled what it looked like to be fully held. But just because you didn't see it modeled doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's your turn to build it, brick by brick, breath by breath. You will make mistakes. You will want to run back to the familiar pain, but pain is not proof of love, and suffering is not your birthright. You can choose again, even now, especially now. You're not late. You're right on time for the return.
But the real turning point is not when you finally get everything you wanted. It's when you realize you never needed it in the first place. This is the part they don't teach you, not in school, not in therapy, not even in most spiritual traditions. They teach you how to strive, how to succeed, how to conform, but rarely do they teach you how to be free. Because true freedom means losing everything you clung to, every identity you borrowed, every goal that was never really yours, every mask you wore just to feel safe. And when those things fall away, when the ground beneath your feet disappears, there's a moment of terror. Because who are you now? No title, no validation, no applause, no role to play. Just you, raw, exposed, whole. That's when the healing begins. That's when the illusions die and something ancient awakens. You were not meant to waste your life performing. You were not meant to survive your whole life in survival mode. You were meant to come alive. Not later, not when it's convenient, now. This is the calling you've been ignoring, the still, quiet voice inside you that whispers, "You're not broken. You're just buried." Beneath the noise, beneath the story, beneath the pain, you are already whole. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming who you truly are means facing the fire. It means walking through the parts of yourself you abandoned. It means ending the performance and beginning the life. You don't need more motivation, you need permission. Permission to stop betraying yourself, permission to slow down, to breathe, to say no, to rest, to feel, to grieve, to walk away from the life you built out of fear and step into the one waiting for you on the other side of truth. You are not here to fit in. You are not here to please. You are not here to hide your scars. You are here to live in alignment with what is real. And what is real will always ask more from you than comfort. It will ask for your honesty, your courage, your presence. This is your invitation, not to change who you are, but to remember who you were before the world told you to forget. Because your time is not unlimited, but your soul is. And somewhere in you there's a child who never stopped believing, who never stopped hoping, who never stopped whispering, maybe there's more. There is, and it's been waiting for you. So if something inside you is stirring, if your chest is heavy and your throat is tight, if your heart knows this message was meant for you, then don't turn away. Turn toward it. Let the pain speak. Let the silence teach. Let the real you rise. Because this moment, right now, is the beginning of the rest of your life. And if you're still listening, it means you're ready. So don't leave without giving yourself this gift, a promise. That from this moment on, you will not go back to sleep. You will not betray your own knowing. You will not waste another day pretending you don't care. You were made for more, and deep down, you know it. So hit that subscribe button, not for me, but for you, to remind yourself every time a new video appears that this is your path now. The path of awakening, the path of truth, the path of becoming, and you never have to walk it alone again.